Bo Jackson seems like a pretty regular guy. Like, yes, he played baseball, and yes, he played football, and yes, he played both sports almost at the same time. And yes, he's been pretty low-key since retiring in the 1990s because hey, if you didn't know, playing against the Cincinnati Bengals is kind of a curse. But his love story is worth sharing, even though his marriage and what we know about it has been actually pretty uneventful. But it wasn't always that way, though. Soon, you'll see, and I'm going to tell you all about it. So now that we're past our little 1 week hiatus, you've been cordially invited to the Booze and Baseball month of I'll Tell You What. I'll Tell You What is a podcast where I share the weddings, marriages, and romances of Black figures throughout time. Now, we do this not to be messy, but to remind us all of the passion in our past and to humanize the people we place on pedestals. Basically, it's all love, Black history. I'll Tell You What is presented by Hueido, and I'm Ashley, your favorite raconteuse. I can't wait to tell you these love stories every single Monday, so don't forget to subscribe on Patreon, the Tube of You, or wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us here and everywhere, and again, join us on Patreon because there's more love and more Black history going on. So, like I mentioned, we're going to reflect on the booze in baseball, the men that are known for their success within the sport, and the love stories that accompanied their lives. So, with that being said, let's get into the life and love of Bo Jackson. Bo Jackson was a typical 1980s Southern college athlete. To be an athlete, that meant that everything you did on and off the field was scrutinized tremendously, and that included flings and relationships, especially if you were Black. In her article about interracial intimacy and intersectional identities among Black college men, sociologist Dr. Amy C. Wilkins wrote that, quote, university status structures and racialized erotic markets reward Black men for enacting heterosexual swagger and penalize them for relinquishing it, creating incentives for Black men to link themselves to the player image. So what biographer Jeff Pearlman wrote about Bo in The Last Folk Hero, The Life and Myth of Bo Jackson confirms that very sentiment. Quote, over his first 2 years of college, Jackson had plenty of sex with plenty of women, before games, after games, before practice, after practice. They came in all shapes and sizes and races and ethnicities and were largely disposable bodies who entered his sphere, enjoyed a quick spin, and then poof, left. Bo was a college student when coaches did not want their Black athletes to entertain any sort of relationship with white women. However, his coach, Pat Dye, didn't really care about all that. In a way, he created a way for his players to do what they wanted without a lot of speculation and scrutiny. Truthfully, he wouldn't have to deal with it. Quote, according to Lionel James, before housing was formally assigned, he was pulled aside by Dye. Quote, I know y'all are dating these white girls, he said, quote, we're going to put you outside of town just so I don't have to talk about it and y'all can do whatever you want to do. So like Pearlman said, Bo entertained a little bit of everyone. Bo knows... Never mind. The conquest of being a Black athlete that was desired by white women and accessible to them was a sign of progress and success for some. Now, if Bo felt that way, child, I don't know. We don't know. But none of these women seemed serious enough for an actual relationship. That was until he met a young lady named Allison Hines. Through mutuals, Bo Jackson met the woman that would become his fiancée during the winter of 1983. He'd recently turned 21 and she was 18. That young lady was Allison Hines, a freshman at Livingston University. According to his biography, quote, their first date was a dinner at Quincy's Family Steakhouse in Birmingham. It wasn't long afterwards that Bo became, quote, smitten. He liked that she was, quote, unimpressed by fame, willing to talk back, quick with a snarky retort. And Allison liked that he acknowledged her even when they were around other people. But as much as they liked one another, they were in a long-distance relationship. Livingston was shy of 200 miles away from Auburn. So when he dislocated his shoulder during a game against Texas in September 1984, Allison knew that she needed to be by her man. Or rather, both suggested that. Allison said, quote, after he got hurt, he said he thought I needed to transfer to Auburn to be closer to him. He felt very strongly about it. Now, despite what her parents thought, she went ahead and transferred anyway. So when she arrived on campus, she was in for a wide awakening. She quickly learned that she was now public enemy number one. Perlman wrote, quote, as soon as she arrived in Auburn, women would shoot threatening glares her way. Women hated that Bo Jackson had a girlfriend, an actual woman that he declared as his girlfriend. Now let's fast forward to summer of 1985. Bo proposed to Allison. I don't know how or what he said, how he did it, if he got down on one knee, if she cried or laughed, but by December, when he was accepting the Heisman Trophy, she was there as his fiancée. A wedding would be in the works at some point. They hadn't gotten to planning yet, but it didn't matter at the time. Bo received the coveted award that basically every collegiate football player desired. He was on top of the world, a star athlete, engaged to the love of his life, and engaged to the other love of his life. Yeah, you heard that right. By the time the Heisman ceremony came around, Bo Jackson was engaged to 2 women, allegedly. So let me repeat that. By the time of the Heisman ceremony in 1985, Bo was engaged to 2 women, Allison Hines, his college girlfriend, and Linda Garrett Robinson. Now, you're probably wondering, who is Linda? According to the biography, The Last Folk Hero, The Life and Myth of Bo Jackson by Jeff Perlman, around the same time Allison was transferring to Auburn, Bo met Linda, a grad student at Auburn that is 6 years older than him, that was also separated from her husband. Yes, her husband. She was an actual adult, like a real adult. Both Bo and Linda declared that they were just friends for some time before their relationship advanced, but tell you again, they actually became lovers and friends about 5 months after they met. And that was about a year before Bo proposed to Allison. Now you might want to know, Bo knows everything, but what did Allison know? Well, Allison knows nothing, or rather, as she put it, quote, I guess I was dumb or blind. Maybe just naive, because Allison knew of Linda. Bo told her that, quote, she was just his tutor. And she had no reason to doubt him. I mean, this was someone she saw daily. He affirmed her on the regular, and she transferred schools despite what her parents thought about all of that. So she knew in her heart of hearts that their union would eventually turn into marriage. So yeah, this grad student that's like almost 10 years older than her, yeah, she's no one to be concerned about. But in hindsight, Allison said, quote, there were some incidents I probably should have questioned, but who wants to be on guard all the time when it comes to the person that they love and adore? Meanwhile, Linda said initially she was drawn to his aesthetic. Quote, his body just stands out. Getting to know Bo made him more than just some stud. Bo and Linda admitted that their relationship just naturally evolved after spending so much time studying together. So Bo proposed to Linda once he learned that they were expecting and he was going to be a father. Quote, according to a 1989 profile in Tulsa World, upon learning of Linda's pregnancy, Jackson immediately proposed. Quote, Bo said, quote, let's get married now, Linda recalled. Quote, I said, no, I don't want you to marry me because I'm pregnant. Bo said, quote, I want to marry you because I love you, not because you're pregnant. So that's how Bo Jackson ended up in the Burberry button down with 2 fiancés at the same damn time. Bo Jackson's first fiancée, Allison, did not know about his second fiancée, Linda. Not during the Heisman ceremony when Allison was there with him while Linda sent Bo flowers to his room to congratulate him. And it wasn't during the Japan Bowl, which took place a few weeks after the Heisman event, in which he took Linda instead of Allison. And she still didn't know after Bo was drafted by the Kansas City Royals. She didn't know after Bo and Linda welcomed their first child, a baby boy named Garrett. But she would find out, though. Isn't that always how it goes? During a trip to see Bo in Memphis, she was in for a bit of a surprise. Quote, in late July, she came anticipating a nice time with her man, but found photographs of an infant on a table inside his apartment. Now, you know Bo lied about who this child was when she asked, allegedly. He could have used this as a chance to trim it down to just one fiancé, but he didn't. And yet, he did. Because Allison said that was the final straw in their relationship. Years later, Bo would tell a journalist that he, quote, was trying to find an excuse to break up with Allison and called her, quote, a gold digger, and insinuated that her mom was interfering in their relationship this whole time. Now, whether that was the truth or not, does not matter. This allowed him to become more serious with Linda, and you might be wondering, what is more serious than being engaged and having a child with someone? You know the answer to that. Quote, in February 1987, shortly before leaving for spring training, Jackson handed Linda Garrett a small box with a diamond ring inside. He wanted to get it right and prove to Linda how serious he was about her and their family. Bo was ready to be a family man. When Bo saw his son, Garrett, for the first time, he said, quote, I knew then that the side of Bo Jackson, which was a whore, really running around and chasing women, was over. He proposed to his fiancée, Linda, again, but that time with a ring and intent. By the end of 1987, they got married and moved into a 4,200 square foot home in Kansas. Most athletes that have wives and families are still outside, pouring it up. Their careers continue to ascend, which puts them in front of a lot of women and a lot of men, and that access can open the door to a lot of debauchery. But not Bo. Quote, he didn't want to be like so many of the other athletes he knew, on the road dogs seeking out that next conquest. He had sown his wild oats and he was done with it, wrote Perlman. Quote, no matter the sport, when Bo traveled, he called Linda 3 times per day. Linda, meanwhile, was mostly at home raising the children while also working on her PhD in clinical psychology. By the time Bo retired from both baseball and football, he was the father of 3 children, Garrett, Morgan, and Nicholas, the husband to Dr. Linda Jackson. Yes, that's right, Dr. Linda Jackson, and someone who found more comfort in the anti-celebrity life. Bo went back to college to get his degree in the mid-90s, which was a promise he made to his mama, and overall barely made the news outside of positive and benevolent doings like his Bo Bikes Bama annual charity event. A few months ago, he won a lawsuit after 2 family members of his, quote, formed a conspiracy with the purpose of extorting money from him. That awarded him $21 million. But I mean, honestly, outside of that, Bo's life has been extremely private, and you just have to respect that. So Bo's story started as Bo knows drama and Bo knows mess to Bo knows solace and Bo knows peace. He matured past his days of debauchery and was able to provide a healthy and loving life to his family. And that, Outrunners, concludes the love story of Bo Jackson. If you want to know Bo, I suggest you read the biography, The Last Folk Hero, The Life and Myth of Bo Jackson by Jeff Perlman. And you can find a link to that plus the other resources I used on I'llTellYouWhat.com. Don't forget to become an official Outrunner on Patreon. Follow I'll Tell You What everywhere you can, and come back next week for another booze and baseball love story. See you in the pews.